Well, we're back with the introduction of the New Testament. And today we are going to be talking about First Timothy. Now, to set the stage, Timothy was one of Paul's traveling companions. He was a younger man. He had a Jewish mother and a Greek father. Paul had gotten him circumcised so he'd be accepted by the Jews. Paul was training Timothy to be a pastor. And what we start with in 1 Timothy that we'll get into 2 Timothy and into Titus are what are called the pastoral epistles. These are letters written primarily for pastors, how to call elders and deacons, requirements for the ministry, so on and so forth. So in 1 Timothy, we start to get into some of the more pastoral issues that is being faced in the New Testament. And after Paul gives the salutation to Timothy, Paul immediately jumps into the deep end when Paul starts to talk about false teachers and their false doctrine. During this time period, there were a lot of false teachers moving around amongst the church as it was getting its legs underneath it. And they were teaching all sorts of crazy things where they were talking about genealogies and fables. And they were pushing all these extra biblical rituals. We see ultimately the rise of Gnosticism coming about. And Paul tells Timothy that he needs to reject these things. He needs to teach the faith, to teach the commandment of love, to keep his eyes on what is true doctrine. He talks about how the law itself is good, how the law does not make a person righteous, but how the law drives people to Christ, so that we can go to God for God's grace and receive God's grace through Jesus Christ. And Paul tells Timothy to fight the good fight. He goes on and he exhorts Timothy, to pray for all men, to pray for the whole world, to lift up Christ, and to show that he is a good teacher not only to the Jews, but the Gentiles. Then he goes into the idea that we should be comporting ourselves in modesty, how we should not be going for flashy clothes or going for fancy jewelry or anything like that. But a true teacher will always conduct themselves modestly, and the women in the church need to conduct themselves modestly. After that, in chapter 3, we get into the qualifications of the pastoral office, whether it be bishops, whether it be pastor, priest, whatever, that the pastors are to conduct themselves morally, to be gentle and not quarrelsome, not to be covetousness. A pastor should never be in the position they're in for money. I'm not saying that the pastor shouldn't be paid, but if your primary objective in doing what you're doing is getting a paycheck, you are in the wrong profession and you are not genuinely called. You should be able and be willing to do this for free if you have to. Now, the congregation should want to pay you, but you should just be doing it. And pastors should keep themselves from pride. Same way with the deacons. He goes through a whole list of qualifications for the deacons in the church. Then he goes into the idea of the great mystery, that the fact that you are to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of truth, that the church itself is the body of Christ, that the church is the manifestation of Christ on earth since the ascension. But Paul goes on and tells Timothy that there will be a falling away. There will be people that come against you. There will be people that try to tear you down. But you need to be a good servant of Christ. Any clergyman should stand strong for the gospel, stand strong for the faith, no matter what comes against them, and take heed to their ministry. Take care of your church members. Honor the widows, honor the older people, teach the young, honor the elders. Hold people up. Do not allow people to fall into error in teaching or into greed. And make a good confession. Stand on the faith. Allow people to see the truth of what you're teaching. That's all we got for today. I'll see you next time if the Lord wills and the creeks don't rise.